Good morning and welcome to our reading and reflection. As usual, this is one of two videos that we are producing today. The second one will be prayers and communion. The second one, the other one. I mean, if you're doing that one first, then this is the second one. Today is Pentecost Sunday. Pentecost Sunday, Whitsun in the old-fashioned version. And it's, of course, May the 31st, the last day of May 2020. And because it's Pentecost Sunday, we're thinking all about the Holy Spirit. On that first Pentecost, the Holy Spirit came in great power upon Jesus' disciples and apostles, upon the early church. And this is the Sunday when the church particularly remembers the person and the work of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, it's fair to say, is generally a bit, I think, mysterious and sometimes misunderstood. Now, you might have a picture of what Jesus looked like. A man, he's maybe in his early 30s, brown skin, beard, ordinary-looking sort of bloke. But the Holy Spirit is a harder idea, person, concept, being to get a handle on, harder to pin down, to describe, to imagine. Jesus says the Holy Spirit moves around like the wind, blows like the breeze. He is invisible and impossible to catch or control. Other metaphors, other manifestations of the Holy Spirit in the Bible describe him as being water or fire. They speak of dynamism, movement, energy. But that's not to say that the Holy Spirit is just a kind of impersonal force. The Holy Spirit is a person, not a human being, but a person with a personality, with thoughts and feelings. We know that because Paul urges us not to grieve or upset the Holy Spirit. Don't offend the Holy Spirit. That's in Ephesians chapter 4. Paul also tells us that the Holy Spirit prays for us. He pleads our case with the Father. That's in Romans chapter 8. The Holy Spirit is a person, and he's one of the three persons, along with the Father and the Son, who make up the community of God that we call the Trinity. And here we are in Holy Trinity Church, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So that's who the Holy Spirit is, but what does he do? Perhaps the main role of the Holy Spirit is to be God with us, not just with us, but within us, changing us from the inside out, bringing God as close as possible. I mean, how close can you be to another person? But that idea of God being within us makes it as close as is even imaginable. The Holy Spirit is also a bit like a lawyer. Sometimes he's a lawyer for the prosecution. He pricks our conscience. He convicts us of what we are doing wrong. That's in John chapter 16. Sometimes he's a lawyer for the defense. He's pleading our cause, putting our case to God in our defense. That's in Mark chapter 13. The Bible describes the Holy Spirit as a counselor or a comforter. A wise person once said the work of the Holy Spirit is to comfort the afflicted and also to afflict the comfortable. So which aspect of the Holy Spirit's work do you need? Comforting or convicting? The Greek word is paraclete. Paraclete. And I'm going to offer three English words that give a translation, a different facet, a different side to what that word might mean for us. And those three English words are counselor, colleague, and comrade. A counselor offers therapy and insight and healing. Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And the work of a counselor is to introduce people to the truth. That can be a painful business, but ultimately it's more painful in the long term to live in lies and denial. But a counselor may really be more simply a comforter. We think of counselors who work with the bereaved and the depressed in their despair. Some counselors simply sit and listen with sympathy and compassion as you express yourself, as you discover and work out the truth of what you're thinking and feeling, of your experiences and hopes and fears. Other counsellors are more proactive. They don't just listen, they give good advice and guidance. So, counsellor, colleague, comrade, that's counsellor. Now for colleague, God gives us work to do, and he gives us the strength to do the work and the reward at the end of the work. But we don't just do this work for God, we do it with God. Going to work for and with God can be exciting and fulfilling, but sometimes a good colleague might have a few hard things to say to us about the quality and the quantity of our work. Still, working in a team is more effective and efficient than working alone. And when we work with the Holy Spirit as our colleague, we are greater than the sum of our parts. Counsellor, colleague, comrade, and that's the third one, comrade. The dictionary defines a comrade as a friend or companion with whom you have been involved in a difficult or dangerous activity. Perhaps you feel that you're fighting a losing battle for a lost cause. You need a well-equipped and well-trained comrade. A comrade is someone on the same side as us against the enemy, someone who shares in all that we go through and who offers strength and support. In short, an ally. An informed and inspirational comrade is a boost to morale when you are feeling lost and lonely. The Holy Spirit, counsellor, colleague, comrade. Next, a few very brief words about the fruit of the Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit. There are 9 of each, 9 fruits, 9 gifts. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the Bible talks about the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit. Number 1, wisdom. That's the ability to give good advice. And number 2, knowledge or understanding. Number 3, faith. That's the ability to trust and believe in God. Number 4, healing. The ability to bring health and wellness to a person or situation. 5 is miracles, the breaking in of God's power to change and transform against the odds. Number 6, need 2 hands for this, prophecy, the ability to hear God's truth and to speak it out. Number 7, discernment, the ability to know the difference between good and evil. Number 8, tongues, the ability to speak in human or unknown supernatural languages. And finally, number 9, interpretation, the ability to translate those languages. Some of these are quite mystical and are associated with the charismatic or Pentecostal churches. But mystical is not the same as wacky or weird. So those are the 9 gifts. Then there are the 9 fruit of the Spirit, and these are much simpler to understand. Here's Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. The Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Now, who would not like more of those 9 fruits in their life? Wouldn't you like to be more joyful, kinder, more faithful, more gentle, more loving, more patient, more peaceful? Never mind your 5 a day, how about your 9 a day? Let's look for a moment at the difference between gift and fruit. A gift is at the discretion of the giver. It's given, but it's not a given. It's not automatically assumed. The giver can choose what and when and to whom the gift is given, or not. And a gift also has to be received by the recipient. You can reject or refuse a gift. But fruit happens spontaneously, as it were. Fruit is a natural result of a plant being healthy and alive. And, of course, the type of fruit that the plant bears is dependent on the type of plant that it is. An apple tree can only bear apples, but it also can't help bearing apples. It's what it does. There's no consent needed, no permission, no choice, no volition. And the fruit is produced regardless of anyone seeing it or picking it or eating it. It just happens, naturally, spontaneously. And we too, Christians, are called to bear fruit, whether or not anyone else sees it or knows it. Fruit is good. Fruit is good for you. And when Christians bear the fruit of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, well, then everyone benefits. Who doesn't love those things? Also, fruit contains the seeds of the plant. So when the Holy Spirit produces fruit in you, then you become sharers and spreaders of God, sending his seed out into the world and into others in the sweet flesh of the tasty fruit. Finally, some homework for you this week. As usual, it wouldn't be a Sunday if I didn't send you off with some work to do. Your homework this week is to tune in to the Holy Spirit. When I was a kid, I got a radio from my grandfather. It was a Sharp GF 1740. I can remember it really clearly. And it had a cassette recorder, so I could tape the top 10 each week off the radio. Do you remember doing that? I had loads of cassettes with all sorts of music on it. And the thing this radio had is the thing that all radios used to have, and maybe you've still got one like it. It had a tuning knob on the top, and then this kind of strange dial that was like a slide rule. And as you turned the tuning knob, the pointer would move along the scale, and as it did so, the signals of the different radio stations, they'd start to fade in as you entered that zone, and then they'd get stronger and clearer as you were in the middle of that zone, and then they would gradually fade out as it kept moving across until the next station was reached. This is all something to do with wavelengths and frequencies and transmitters. Kids today, they don't know they're born with their Wi-Fi and their broadband and all the websites and apps that they can access at the click of a button, the touch of a screen. I had to tune in. And we need to tune in to the Holy Spirit, and we do that primarily by prayer. Reading can also help, especially the Bible. Getting some peace and quiet is really important. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some space. Find a place where you can be attentive and receptive. Tune in to the Holy Spirit. The work of the Holy Spirit is to bring us to God and to bring God to us, to be God with us. He comforts and he challenges so that we are changed from the inside out. And this change should be an increase in our love for God and our love for others. We thought earlier about 3 words that might describe the Holy Spirit: counselor, colleague, comrade. We looked at the 9 gifts of the Spirit and the 9 fruit of the Spirit. Have a think about those 3 words, but in particular, have a think about those 2 sets of 9, the fruit and the gifts. Which one would you like? Which one do you need? Well, ask God for it. Pray to God to send his Holy Spirit to you in a special way. Ask the Holy Spirit to come to you now. Take a moment, find some space, find a place, tune in to the Spirit, receive him, and ask for his fruit and his gifts. Amen.